Gaming isn't the same as it used to be. We all already know that. Lots of others have probably already spoke this countless number of times into existence. There's great debate about all the possibilities that have changed gaming, whether that's an industry-wide problem or if it comes from our own personal situations tethered to us. It's important that we ask questions and address our own needs that have believed us to think that gaming is a shell of its former self. If you are here to disagree with me, I am open ears to hearing your personal experiences and thoughts, because all I want is what's best for us. But coming from a kid who has played games such as these and having countless memories, to then transitioning over to these types of games, I can say I've experienced and been through the ups and downs as most of us have. So what are our biggest topics of discussion today in relation to the decline in gaming? I've heard that it's the launch of unfinished games and constant disappointment from previously hyped fans. It could be the free-to-play titles leaving us dreaded, the graphics always needing to be better than the year before. But the most intriguing statement that piques my curiosity the most is when people claim our burnout for games is the fact that we've grown up, and that's all there is to it. We're older people who just can't enjoy gaming as much anymore. That statement itself, I believe, is what we need to look at first in exploring how gaming has lost its touch. So my biggest problem with whether or not growing up has anything to do with our passion for gaming is the fact that we're still here playing. Not because we can't accept it, but because we still find our familiar joy in newer games here and there. Only specific games too. They really are hit or miss. But those newer games that we do enjoy, I question and compare the longevity of them to older games. Because if they don't last long enough, then we're stuck in a deep hole until a new enjoyable game does come around. Take a look at Halo, Gears of War, and Call of Duty. These were 3 games back in the day that were constantly battling each other to be on top. Competition at its finest to make the more enjoyable game. Looking at it from our viewpoint, we had 3 incredibly solid games to bounce between. Every new release was almost always an instant fan favorite. If they weren't, I don't think we would have ever seen new versions of them on newer generations of hardware. But the point is that these 3, at the time, were titans in the gaming industry. The titans we compare to now are nowhere near a match. The closest thing I can think of is Fortnite, but even Call of Duty, Gears of War, and Halo had their competition. There's dozens of other games during their prime eras that were easily masterpieces, and you can go back to most of those and still have that same entertainment. I challenge you to visit some of those older games and see how they hold up. I don't know if there's a lot of belief out there that makes us think we need to be super serious all the time as adults and be on edge about this life we're living, but I don't see any scenario where any adult would have to give up that kid in them. Part that likes to have fun and geek out about anything that interests us. What's so wrong with that? It's the same with video games. They are there for everyone, and it doesn't matter if we grew up. They still are made for people and are supposed to be fun. Why would that change? I don't want to speak about the science of all this, really just how we feel as people. And what I feel personally is that gaming is still in my heart and I still want to play it every day. Despite if I can or not, I'm still going to seek in my free time to get those same experiences in games I played growing up. Growing up changes that. Maybe the amount of time and investment we put into a game does change, but not the atmosphere we get when we do finally get to play. When we're faced with growing up, moving on to the next stage in our lives, there are factors that hinder the same gaming experiences. We're all going to need money and worry about responsibilities. Some may give up the game, but why that because we grow up that we have to throw away our entertainment? Every other gamer adult enjoyed the games we experienced growing up. You're telling me you didn't know of any adults making very similar memories to us as children on games like Call of Duty? Most of the time I only ever heard adults trash talking me every day. They were there too and cherished the games as we did. I wasn't one of the adults growing up during what was often considered the golden age of gaming. But if there are any watching, let me know if I'm right about you guys. While growing up changes our commitments and energy levels, we're still going to kick back at the end of the day. I refuse to blame our growing up for the reason why games feel so much duller. However, we can compare whether older and newer games are more fun to find out which did it best. What older games executed better than newer games is Remembrance. I could name dozens of games from the past and very specific memories from them compared to the very few nowadays. Back then you had games like previously mentioned Call of Duty, Gears of War, and Halo, but then also others like Assassin's Creed, Fallout, Skyrim, GTA, Saints Row, The Sims, Borderlands, Left 4 Dead, and a crap ton more. In these past few years, you can maybe name a few like Fortnite, Warzone, Elden Ring, and some others, but comparing the biggest games from now to back then, You can tell a lot has changed from a creative standpoint. The focus has changed and game companies compete with each other to see who can provide the better cosmetics and system to buy them. Back then, it was purely a competition to provide the most enjoyable and long-lasting game. Now we've gotten unfinished, disappointing games on launch that take months to fix, maybe even years. A few weeks in, it probably won't even matter anymore, and the whole mood is killed off. Remember the hype behind games like Cyberpunk and Anthem? The fans were all there. We were excited and ready to play until we figured out what the final product really was. Now imagine they didn't fail, and lived up to the hype or somewhat close to it. They came out a few years ago. They would be two of the biggest games in the market right now, adding to everyone's collection of what they can play. But because of so many games failing and not taking the necessary steps to launch one, we're missing out on several games a lot of us can be playing right now. A game like Halo Infinite launched without many bugs, but they lacked content and almost had nothing in it. Almost everyone admitted it was good in beta, but then the game came out and it was still feeling like the beta stage with almost no new modes. So imagine we had polished, well-rounded games out right now that could have been those like Anthem, Cyberpunk, and Halo. There's been lots over the years. I bet you completely forgot about Anthem until I mentioned it. A big part of a game's production and the turnout is affected by the marketing. Before a game even comes out, it's all on the hype stage. And what I think no one really talks about is how things like E3, binging on news, and watching new trailers for a game is all an experience. The experience that leads us to enjoying the game when it comes out and to make memories with the community. Where I believe old breaks down new games is within the marketing. E3 is almost a joke now and made fun of, and trailers for many games have no character anymore. I'm not saying all of them lack that, because there are good gems out there, but every big game back then seemed special, you know? You'll see people from over the years revisit trailers and share the connections in the comments. The old trailers would be evoking some sort of emotion out of us. Gears of War is a perfect franchise of that, new and old. From Gears 1 to Gears 4, we had these dark trailers really representing what the game would feel like. It was a sad and kind of depressing game that made our characters all feel like close family. Then we jumped to Gears 5 and it was just some basic stuff. While none of this is the actual game in our hands, the stage before release is incredibly important to us as consumers. It's our way of getting invested and feeling closer to the game that we may just dump days into. And unfortunately, some things just become out of date, like how midnight releases were a very popular option as people back then still bought discs frequently, but now it's mostly digital. That's something hard to bring back and is a part of history, but also was included in the experience before a game came out. But looking at the actual game when it's released, I think a very big misconception is that we need great graphics. I don't know why everyone is so picky with them when some of the best games these past few years don't focus on it heavily. Look at those like Among Us, Fall Guys, Phasmophobia, and several more. They didn't need all that because the mechanics and features of a game is what carries it. With us as gamers pushing that standard, we just eat away at developers to waste more resources on what shouldn't be so high on the priority list. And if we really want to judge a game by how it looks, I think design is what most of us are actually looking for. You know, the design of maps and how they are put together, the backdrops and amazing environments that form a really cool theme while adding scale to everything. Something Halo has done very well throughout the entire series, may I add. I think that's what most would much rather prefer, but gameplay should be higher than that. We want to do cool things and fill our brains with dopamine, so perfecting a gameplay loop that will keep us on a game years after launch is much more important to everyone involved. And that gameplay, you can say, is getting less innovative. I'm not sure if I can blame developers on that one completely because, well, what else more can a lot of them do? It's kind of hard to be revolutionary nowadays when a lot has already been done, so searching for ideas can be a huge obstacle to overcome when making a game. But let's take a look at what newer games are doing. We already all know about the battle royales and the everlasting impact they made on gaming. It caused a lot of developers to turn focus and prioritize making some rip-off to see if their project makes it to the top with others. And I mean, a lot of the big studios did this. If you don't like these battle royales, well, it might be even harder to find anything to play with the library of games being even smaller. And I know games have always been known to copy working ideas from others, but it's gotten so much worse that it's just blatantly obvious now. It's like, where's the fun in that for anyone? I know this is a job for developers. There are still passionate developers out there, and there are some good games right now. Elden Ring, Escape from Tarkov, Red Dead, and several more. A big problem is the overwhelming microtransactions and the amount of things you can buy a part of the game. It's not about our decision on whether we buy them or not. It's about how much time and energy those take to make over something else. That's really it. I haven't had any urge to splurge on any cosmetics. I just want to play the game and enjoy any DLCs that they make because that's the real extra content. I'm not entirely sure what happens behind the scenes, but from looking at the long-lasting franchises, a lot of them don't have the same teams they did before. Did you guys know the developers of Gears of War are the developers of Fortnite? Well, the Coalition is who makes Gears now, but it used to be Epic Games. Two completely different teams within a game, but we're missing key developers from each series. In games like Halo, we had Bungie making the classic ones, but now they make Destiny. But who do we know that still works at Bungie that made Halo? If you're getting at what I am saying, the old teams we had aren't the same and in the same situations. Maybe there's a few, but I don't know what companies that would be. It would easily be biased of me to say old games did it better, and I do easily believe they did it better. It's hard to prove to someone who was never playing back then, because it's mostly just one of those things that you had to have been there to truly experience it and soak it in for yourself. But what I have gathered from new and old in my lifetime is that older games were much more filled with creativity and passion, while newer games are scarce in that. But they also often release unfinished games that never reach their potential or just throw out copycats to get cash grabs. But if there's one thing, this is truly a time for indie games to grow and make a statement in the industry. We've seen some of the most played games be indie games. They've been trendy and lots of creators jump on them. Next thing you know, they are popular amongst everyone. And why have they been popular? Well, they were innovative and brought fresh air to all of us. As many people think of Among Us as cringe, well, it was and still is very popular. It brought a detective-like game to life, kind of similar to Town of Salem, but still quite different enough and much more simpler. It's games like this that we will need to challenge big companies and find new things that work, because the big studios aren't doing much right now. It's also great debate on whether free-to-play games have hurt gaming, and that sounds wrong because it's free games for us, so how could that be bad? Well, when something is free, we can't really complain as much because we didn't have to waste our money. And it's much easier to get a bigger player base playing that game because you're opening the doors to so many other players. That's going to create less of a standard and encourage more microtransactions to help pay for it. Once that starts becoming the model for other games, well, then it starts affecting everyone, because less well-made games is just another potentially great game out the window. That's what we see less and less of as the years go on. It must be so relieving to finally find a game that you can play for many weeks to enjoy. And how many older franchises have we seen relied on remastering their older content? I get why, and I'm not ever opposed to repopulating something that was great, but you can tell with the remasters just how many people want that kind of stuff back. If you remember back in 2016, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was coming out and they also had Modern Warfare Remastered, but you had to buy the bundle that includes Infinite Warfare to get it, because they knew rarely anyone wanted Infinite Warfare, and we all saw the amount of dislikes on YouTube for the game. And let me tell you, the Modern Warfare Remaster was played much more than Infinite Warfare. I think that's a good example showcasing that a lot of older games just did it better, and they still sometimes do better despite their age. I hate to be the guy that just hates on newer games, because I do enjoy them and there are well-designed ones out there. It's really just the direction they've gone in and how inconsistent they are. I can't be the decision maker for you on whether you think older or newer games are better. Everyone is different, but I know there's a lot out there like me that see what I see. We just care for games and want to experience all the fun times with similar people around us. We may see that differently from others, but we're all still alike in the sense of wanting a fun game to play. We are what helps make games special and worth getting on every night for. We want to see those trailers and witness previews of what our next favorite game may just be. I don't think anyone minds paying for a product if it's fun and long lasting. Memories last a lifetime. You can't put a price on that. When you're older and full of memories, you'll be glad to have these moments from your time with gaming. Nothing could ever beat that.